Introduction. Why saying no changes your life? Have you ever said yes while every cell in your body whispered no? Maybe it was an invitation you didn't want to accept, a favor you didn't have the time or energy to give, a commitment that drained you before it even began. We've all been there. And in those moments, what we're really sacrificing isn't just time or energy. It's alignment, it's peace, it's self-respect. Saying no isn't just a word. It's a skill, a boundary, a decision that honors your truth. And yet so many of us struggle with it, not because we're weak, but because we were taught that being agreeable is good and disappointing others is bad. But what if the opposite is true? What if learning to say no, calmly, clearly, and confidently, is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect? What if the life you want doesn't begin when you do more, but when you decline what no longer fits? This audiobook isn't about becoming harsh or cold. It's not about building walls, and it's about creating clarity. Because when you stop saying yes to everything, you start saying yes to yourself. You reclaim time. You protect your energy. You live from intention, not obligation. In the next chapters, we'll explore why so many of us people please, the hidden cost of overcommitment, how to say no without guilt, and how boundaries are the foundation of emotional freedom. Whether you're overwhelmed at work, feeling used in your relationships, or just tired of betraying your own needs, this is your invitation to stop, to pause, to reevaluate, and to remember. You don't need a reason to say no. You don't need to apologize for protecting your peace. You only need permission from one person, you. So let's begin. Lesson 1. The psychology behind people-pleasing. Before we learn how to say no, we need to understand why it feels so hard to begin with. Most people aren't born with a deep fear of disappointing others. It's learned. It starts early. As children, we're taught to behave, to be polite, to not cause trouble. And many of us learned that love or approval came when we were helpful, quiet, or agreeable. Over time, saying yes became a survival tactic, a way to earn acceptance and avoid conflict. But here's the truth. People-pleasing is not kindness. It's self-abandonment in disguise. When we constantly put others first, ignore our own limits, and say yes out of guilt or fear, we slowly disconnect from ourselves. We might feel like we're being good, but deep down, we're building resentment. We're exhausted, overcommitted, and often taken for granted, all because we didn't feel safe to say no. Psychologically, people-pleasing is rooted in a need for safety and belonging. The human brain is wired to avoid rejection because in the past, rejection could mean being cast out of the group. And for our ancestors, that meant danger. So we developed behaviors to keep us included, approved of, and liked. Saying yes became a way to stay safe. But the modern world is different. You are not at risk of being kicked out of your tribe for saying no to dinner plans. You won't be exiled for not answering a late-night work email, but your brain still reacts as if that's a threat. That's why saying no can feel uncomfortable, even scary. People-pleasing also comes from limiting beliefs. Maybe you believe your worth is tied to how much you give. Maybe you think you have to earn love by being useful. Or maybe you fear that if you don't show up for everyone, they'll leave. These beliefs run deep, but they're not truths. They're just patterns. Patterns you can unlearn. Let's look at a few of the most common mental scripts behind people-pleasing. If I say no, they'll be disappointed. I don't want to come off as selfish. It's easier to just agree than deal with conflict. They helped me once. I owe them. What if they get mad? These thoughts may feel convincing, but they keep you stuck. they keep you small, and they make your self-worth dependent on how others feel about you. Here's what's powerful. Once you bring awareness to these scripts, you can begin to challenge them. You can ask, is this really true? What am I afraid of? And what do I lose when I keep saying yes? The irony of people-pleasing is that it doesn't actually lead to deeper connection. It creates shallow relationships where your presence is valued only when you're giving, doing, or fixing something. The more you abandon your needs, the more invisible you become, even to yourself. And worst of all, people-pleasers often attract those who benefit from weak boundaries, energy vampires, manipulators, and chronic takers. Over time, you may start to feel used, drained, or even resentful. But because you've trained yourself to avoid conflict, you just keep smiling and saying yes until something breaks. But here's the good news. This is not who you are. It's a role you've been playing, and roles can be rewritten. You don't need to become hard or unkind to change this pattern. You simply need to reconnect with your self-worth, to understand that your value is not determined by how available, helpful, or agreeable you are. Your value is intrinsic. Saying no doesn't make you less loving. It just means you're loving yourself too. The first step out of people-pleasing is awareness. The second is choice. In every situation where you feel the pull to say yes out of fear, stop and pause. Ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Am I saying yes because I feel guilty? If I say no, what do I believe will happen? What would a confident, self-respecting version of me say right now? You don't need to respond instantly. You can take your time. You can say, let me get back to you, or I'll check my schedule. Space gives you clarity, and clarity helps you respond from truth, not habit. Remember, you're not responsible for how others feel about your no. You're only responsible for being honest and respectful. You can't control their reaction, but you can control whether or not you betray yourself. You deserve relationships where your boundaries are respected, your needs matter, and your no is heard without punishment. But that begins with you. Others will only treat your time and energy as sacred when you do. In the next lesson, we'll explore the invisible cost of saying yes too often, and what it's truly costing you behind the scenes. Lesson 2. The cost of saying yes. Too often, on the surface, saying yes looks generous. You help, you show up, you support others. But over time, this constant yes comes at a cost, one you may not fully realize until you're already depleted. The truth is, every yes is a trade. Every time you agree to something, you're spending time, energy, and attention, all of which are limited. When you say yes too often, you start living a life that isn't really yours. Your calendar fills up with other people's priorities. Your energy is spent on commitments that don't align with your values. And your mental space is cluttered with obligations, guilt, and quiet resentment. You might not even remember the last time you had a full day just for yourself. No appointments, no favors, no pressure to perform. Here's the thing, constantly saying yes disconnects you from your own needs. It teaches your nervous system to override discomfort, to push through exhaustion, to tolerate situations that drain you. Over time, this becomes your default. Always giving, always bending, always available. And slowly, something begins to fade. Your joy, your creativity, your self-trust. Let's look at the real cost of overcommitting. Burnout. Your body keeps the score. If you never say no, your system never gets a break. Fatigue becomes normal. You start waking up tired. You might get sick more often or feel mentally foggy even after rest. Resentment. Even if you agreed to something willingly, if it wasn't aligned, resentment grows. You begin to feel unappreciated, unseen. You might start silently blaming others, not because they're wrong, but because you never gave yourself permission to choose differently. Loss of time. The more yeses you give away, the less space you have for what matters: your goals, your family, your rest, your dreams. Time is a currency you can't earn back. A single careless yes can steal hours, even days, from your life. Damaged relationships. Ironically, saying yes all the time doesn't lead to better connections. It creates imbalance. People might begin to expect your constant support without gratitude. And when you finally set a limit, they react not because your no is unfair, but because your yes became a habit they relied on. Reduced self-worth. Every time you betray your own boundary to please someone else, you send yourself a message: my needs don't matter. Over time, that message becomes belief. You might stop asking for what you want. You might even forget what you want. The worst part: most of this happens silently. You go through the motions, appearing helpful, smiling on the outside, while inside, you're quietly drowning in obligations that don't nourish you. But this can change. And it starts with recognizing that you're allowed to pause. You're allowed to evaluate. You're allowed to protect your energy, even if others don't understand it right away. Here's a helpful mindset shift. Not every good opportunity is your opportunity. Not every invitation is a match. Not every person deserves your yes. You are not here to fulfill every need. You are not the solution to everyone's problem. You are one person with one life, and it is sacred. Start thinking of every yes as an investment. Ask yourself, is this aligned with my values? Will I feel energized or drained by this? Am I saying yes from obligation or joy? What will I need to sacrifice in order to do this? Because the moment you start measuring the true cost of your yes, you begin to reclaim your life. You begin to take your energy seriously. You begin to realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. Imagine what your life would look like if you only said yes when you meant it. If your calendar reflected your priorities. If you had the space to rest, create, and breathe. That version of you isn't a fantasy, it's a choice. Saying yes without discernment leads to a life full of noise. Saying yes with intention leads to a life full of meaning. In the next lesson, we'll talk about the most difficult part: how to say no without feeling guilty. Because protecting your energy should feel empowering, not shameful. And you deserve to learn how. Lesson 3: how to say no without feeling guilty. For many people, saying no is not the hard part. It's the guilt that follows, the racing thoughts, the second-guessing, the worry that you've let someone down or appeared selfish. This guilt is what keeps people stuck in the cycle of overcommitting. But guilt is not a sign that you've done something wrong. It's often a sign that you're doing something new, something unfamiliar, like protecting your time, energy, and peace. The truth is, guilt and growth often go hand in hand. You were probably raised in a culture where helping others, being polite, and saying yes were praised. Maybe you were taught that a good person doesn't say no, so of course it feels uncomfortable to set limits now. You're not broken, you're just unlearning decades of programming. The key is to separate guilt from wrongdoing. Guilt says, I did something bad. But in reality, you just made a choice that honored your own needs. And that's not bad, it's healthy. Imagine a friend told you they couldn't attend an event because they were exhausted and needed rest. Would you be angry with them? Or would you understand? Now ask yourself, why don't you offer yourself the same understanding? Saying no becomes easier when you remember this truth. You are allowed to disappoint others if it means not disappointing yourself. You are not here to meet every expectation. You're here to live your life with intention and clarity. So how do you actually say no without spiraling into guilt? First, be clear and kind, but firm. A vague "maybe later" or "I'm not sure" leaves the door open and makes it harder for you in the long run. Instead, say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I have to pass. I won't be able to commit to that. That doesn't work for me right now. I'm focusing on fewer things right now and I have to say no. I'm honored you asked, but I need to decline." You don't owe anyone a long explanation. You don't need to justify your no with an essay. The more you explain, the more it can sound like an excuse. And excuses invite negotiation. A short, confident no is more respectful, to yourself and the other person. Next, prepare for discomfort. It's normal to feel uneasy at first, but don't confuse discomfort with danger. You're not being rude. You're just doing something new. Let the discomfort be part of the process, and trust that it will get easier with practice. You can also reframe guilt as growth. Instead of thinking, "I feel bad for saying no," try this. "This guilt means I'm learning how to take care of myself. I'm doing something I used to avoid." And that's progress. Sometimes people will push back. They might act disappointed or try to guilt trip you. That's okay. Let them have their feelings, but don't make their emotions your responsibility. You are not responsible for someone else's disappointment. You are only responsible for your clarity. Remember, when you say no, you're not rejecting the person. You're simply protecting your time, energy, or alignment. You can care about someone deeply and still say no. In fact, clear boundaries create safer, more honest relationships. They tell others what they can expect from you and what they can't. If guilt continues to show up, ask yourself, am I really doing something wrong? Or am I just feeling uncomfortable? Who taught me that saying no is bad? What do I gain by honoring my boundary here? What happens if I say yes when I don't mean it? These questions bring clarity, and clarity dissolves guilt. You can also build a few simple mantras to remind yourself of your right to say no. For example, I'm allowed to say no without guilt. My time and energy are valuable. I don't need to explain my boundaries. I can love people and still protect myself. Use these phrases whenever the guilt creeps in. Speak them out loud. Let them become your new mental script. In time, you'll notice something powerful. The more often you say no from a place of truth, the less guilt you feel. You'll begin to trust yourself. You'll realize that your life feels calmer, cleaner, more aligned. You'll stop overthinking every request. And you'll start making decisions based on what feels right, not just what keeps others comfortable. Saying no isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. It's about choosing what honors your values, your needs, and your peace. And once you taste that clarity, you won't want to go back. In the next lesson, we'll explore how boundaries are not just about saying no, but about self-respect. You'll learn why setting limits is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself and the people around you. Lesson 4. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. A boundary is not a wall. It's not a punishment. It's not a weapon you use to push others away. A boundary is a bridge, a clear line that protects what matters to you. And at its core, setting boundaries is a profound act of self-respect. Many people think of boundaries as something you use to control others, but that's not what they are. Boundaries are not about controlling anyone. They are about controlling what you allow into your life. They define how others can treat you, how much access they have, and what kind of energy you will or won't tolerate. Think of boundaries as your personal operating manual. They tell the world how to treat you, and more importantly, they remind you how to treat yourself. When you don't have boundaries, it's easy to lose yourself. You start saying yes to everything, apologizing for things that aren't your fault, and taking responsibility for problems that aren't yours to fix. You become a shapeshifter, adjusting who you are depending on who you're with. Eventually, you stop trusting your own voice. You ignore your gut. You numb your needs. But when you start setting boundaries, everything changes. You begin to make choices that honor your peace. You stop engaging in conversations that leave you drained. You learn to say, "That doesn't work for me," without flinching. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. Boundaries are not selfish, they are essential. Just like your body has a skin to protect it from harm, your life needs boundaries to protect it from emotional, mental, and spiritual harm. Let's be clear, a person with strong boundaries is not cold, distant, or difficult. In fact, they are often more honest, more present, and more trustworthy because you know where they stand. You know what they're okay with and what they're not. There's no guessing, no manipulation, no hidden resentment. That's what healthy relationships are built on. Clarity, not confusion. Self-respect means valuing your time, your space, your energy, and your emotional capacity. And boundaries are how you express that value out loud. You can have boundaries around your time, like not answering work messages after a certain hour. Your energy, like not spending time with people who constantly drain you. Your space, like needing quiet time, alone to recharge. Your values, like not participating in conversations or behaviors that go against your principles. Your emotions, like not tolerating being yelled at or manipulated, even by people you love. When you set boundaries, you're not just protecting yourself from harm, you're also protecting your capacity to give and love in a sustainable way. Because when you're constantly overwhelmed, you can't show up fully. But when you're supported by boundaries, you create the space to be generous from a full cup, not from depletion. Here's something else that's important. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries may not like the new version of you. They might say you've changed. They might call you distant or selfish. But the people who truly care about you will adjust. They'll respect your limits, even if it takes time. And the people who walk away, that's okay too. Boundaries reveal who belongs in your life and who was only there because you had no limits. Sometimes the hardest part is setting boundaries with people you care about deeply. Parents, friends, partners. You may feel guilty. You may fear losing the connection. But the truth is, a connection that only exists because you sacrifice yourself isn't love, it's control. Real love includes respect, and that means respecting your no, your needs, and your limits. Here are a few phrases that can help you express boundaries calmly and clearly. I understand how you feel, but I need to do what's right for me. I'm not available for that, but I hope you find what you're looking for. This isn't something I can commit to right now. I need time to think before I agree to anything. That behavior doesn't work for me. If it continues, I'll have to step away. You don't need to over-explain, you don't need to justify, you just need to be clear and consistent. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, it creates something powerful. Trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your voice. Trust in your ability to take care of your needs, not out of fear, but from love. And here's what's beautiful. The more you respect yourself, the more others will too. Self-respect teaches the world how to treat you. It creates a ripple effect in every area of your life, your work, your relationships, your health, your peace. In the next lesson, we'll take everything you've learned so far and apply it to real-life situations. Because knowing your boundaries is one thing, but communicating them in the moment, that's where the true practice begins. Lesson 5. Real-life scenarios and how to respond. You've learned the psychology behind people-pleasing, the hidden cost of saying yes too often, how to say no without guilt, and how boundaries reflect self-respect. Now it's time to put it all into action, because the true challenge isn't knowing what to say, it's saying it in real time when emotions are high and pressure is real. Let's walk through a few common situations and how to respond with clarity and confidence. Scenario 1. A friend keeps asking for favors. You love your friend, but they constantly lean on you, asking for help with errands, emotional support, or last-minute requests. You're starting to feel drained. What to say? Hey, I really care about you, but I've been feeling stretched thin lately. I won't be able to help with that this time. Or, I need to prioritize my own schedule right now. I hope you understand. You don't have to stop being a good friend, but you can stop being the only one who's always available. Scenario 2. A co-worker expects you to take on extra tasks. You've already got too much on your plate, but a colleague keeps dropping work on you, expecting you to help just this once, every time. What to say? I'm at capacity right now and won't be able to take this on. Or, I'm focusing on my current deadlines and can't add anything else this week. I'd suggest bringing it up with the team or checking with the manager. You're not being rude, you're respecting your workload and time. Saying no here shows professionalism, not laziness. Scenario 3. A family member crosses emotional boundaries. Maybe it's a parent who constantly comments on your life choices, or a sibling who guilts you for not being more involved. What to say? I know you care, but I need you to respect my decisions. Or, that topic doesn't feel helpful to talk about. I'd like to focus on something else. You can set emotional boundaries without cutting people off. Be firm, not hostile. And remember, their discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Scenario 4. Declining an invitation. Someone invites you to an event, trip, or dinner, but you're not feeling up to it. You used to say yes automatically. Now you want to decline without guilt. What to say? Thank you for the invite. I won't be able to make it this time, but I hope it's a great event. Or, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm taking some downtime and need to sit this one out. Short, clear, polite. You don't need to invent an excuse. A simple no is enough. Scenario 5. A client or customer asks for something outside the scope. If you work with clients, you've likely faced the moment when someone asks for just one more thing, even if it's not part of what you offer. What to say? I'd love to support you, but that's outside the scope of our agreement. If you'd like, we can talk about adding that as a separate project. Or, that's not something I offer, but I can recommend someone who does. Boundaries in business protect your energy and your professionalism. They help you grow without burning out. Scenario 6. Saying no to someone you really care about. This one is tough. Maybe it's your partner, maybe your child. Someone you love deeply asks for something, and your heart wants to say yes, but your body says no. What to say? I love you, and I want to be there for you. But right now, I need to honor my own limits. Can we find another solution? Or, this is hard for me to say, but I have to say no this time. It's not because I don't care, it's because I care about both of us and want to be honest. Honesty builds trust, and people who love you will grow to respect your no, especially when you say it with warmth and clarity. A few extra tips. pause before answering. You don't have to respond immediately. Say, "Let me check and get back to you." That pause gives you time to feel into your real answer. Use your body as a guide if you feel tight, anxious, or pressured. That's usually a sign your yes might not be honest. Your nervous system speaks before your words do. Listen to it. Practice in low-stakes moments. Start saying no in everyday situations. Small things like turning down an extra task or declining a favor. The more you practice, the stronger the muscle becomes. Expect pushback and stay grounded. Some people will challenge your boundaries. That doesn't mean you're wrong. Stay calm. Repeat yourself if needed. You're not obligated to explain further. The truth is, every time you say no from a place of self-respect, you're rewriting your life. You're teaching yourself that your time matters, that your feelings matter, that you matter. Setting boundaries doesn't create distance. It creates safety. It builds trust. And over time, it attracts people who value you not for what you do, but for who you are. In the final chapter, we'll bring it all together, and I'll leave you with one simple, powerful truth. Your strongest life begins the moment you start saying no without apology. Conclusion: a stronger you starts with no. You've come a long way. You've unpacked the psychology of people-pleasing. You've seen how saying yes too often drains your energy, your time, and your peace. You've learned how to say no without guilt, how to set boundaries from a place of self-respect, and how to respond clearly in real-life situations. Now here's the truth I want you to carry with you. Every no is also a yes to your rest, a yes to your priorities, a yes to your well-being, your dreams, and your deeper truth. Saying no isn't about becoming hard or distant. It's about becoming honest. When you stop abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable, you begin to live in alignment. You begin to build a life that's not shaped by obligation, but by intention. And yes, it will feel unfamiliar at first. You might feel guilty. People might react. But that discomfort is temporary. What grows in its place is strength, clarity, peace. Every time you say no with kindness and conviction, you teach the world how to treat you. And more importantly, you teach yourself that your needs are valid, that you are worth protecting. So from this moment on, let this be your reminder. You do not exist to be everything for everyone. You are allowed to say no without explanation. You are allowed to walk away from what drains you. You are allowed to take up space, protect your energy, and choose your life. A stronger, calmer, more confident version of you begins the moment you say, "No, that doesn't work for me," and mean it.